Welcome back to another deep dive. You know the feeling, right? It's a Tuesday evening, you're standing in the cleaning aisle of the grocery store, and you are just completely paralyzed.
Oh, the absolute paralysis. It's so overwhelming.
Yeah, you're staring up at this literal wall of brightly colored bottles, and like one aggressively claims it's tough on grease, another has this soft, green label that just says eco-friendly, and then a third just features a picture of a very happy, highly suspicious lemon.
Right. The classic, the marketing lemon.
Exactly. And you're standing there wondering, how am I supposed to know which of these is actually safe to spray on the counter where I make my food and which one is just going to, I don't know, leave a weird lingering chemical residue all over my house?
It's really the defining paradox of the modern consumer experience. I mean, we are completely overloaded with marketing claims, but we are essentially starved for actual verifiable data. We genuinely want products that don't harm our families or, the local watershed, but we also want them to, actually clean the grime off the stove.
Yeah, we need them to work.
Yeah.
And you'd think it would be a simple answer, but trying to parse those labels is just a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, it turns out the U.S. government actually has a literal mathematical framework for figuring this out. So today, we are tearing open the official playbook for the Environmental Protection Agency's Safer Choice program.
Which is such a fascinating system when you really look at it.
It is. Looking at the EPA's own internal architecture, and this is specifically from their site, updated as recently as April 24, 2026, you realize this isn't just some glossy public relations campaign. It is a massive, complex engine designed to define exactly what makes a product safer.
Yeah, and what makes this so compelling is that the ETA isn't just looking at the finished bottle on the shelf. They are looking at the molecular reality of how these products are built right from the ground up.
Okay, let's unpack this, because almost immediately in their documentation, they use a phrase that completely reorients how you think about environmentalism.
Yeah.
They call Safer Choice a pollution prevention program, or P2.
Yeah, P2. And that designation is really the philosophical and mechanical foundation of everything they do here.
How so?
Well, when we normally think about environmental protection, our minds sort of default to end-of-pipe solutions.
Right.
We picture a crew in hazmat suits cleaning up a chemical spill.
Right, or like installing a massive, expensive scrubber on a factory smokestack to filter out the smog.
Exactly. That is pollution control. You wait for the mess, and then you try to contain it. But the EPA explicitly defines pollution prevention as practices that reduce, eliminate, or prevent pollution at its literal source.
It's like choosing not to spill the milk in the first place,
Right.
rather than just buying a bigger mop to clean it up later.
That is a perfect analogy, yeah. Instead of putting a giant filter on the smokestack, you just change the type of fuel the factory's burning so it doesn't produce the toxic smoke at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, apply that to the chemical industry. The Safer Choice program tackles the issue right at the manufacturing laboratory.
Before it's even a product.
Right. By incentivizing the use of scientifically vetted, safer ingredients before the product ever hits the assembly line, the EPA is attempting to stop the chemical runoff before it enters a plastic bottle, before it gets shipped, before it goes down your drain, and, before it makes its way into the local river.
Okay, I see the logic, but I have to play devil's advocate here, because this is where I usually get skeptical in the grocery store.
Oh, sure.
I think a lot of people, myself included, honestly, have this lingering suspicion that if a cleaning product prioritizes being safe or green, it's probably going to require twice as much elbow grease.
Right. The stereotype that it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. It's the old cliche that the eco-friendly dish soap just pushes the grease around the pan instead of cutting it. Does focusing so heavily on the environmental source prevention mean we just have to accept a product that barely works?
It's a completely valid suspicion, and, well, it is the exact hurdle the EPA knew they had to overcome.
So they address that.
Oh, heavily. If you dig into the standards they've published, they don't just measure safety. There is a rigid dual mandate. The documentation explicitly states that Safer Choice helps consumers find products that perform, and they really emphasize that word "and" contain ingredients that are safer.
Wait, really? So the performance aspect isn't just an afterthought?
No, it is literally baked into the scientific certification. They absolutely require performance testing against established industry standards.
So they actually test if the window cleaner cleans windows?
Yes. And from a purely pragmatic standpoint, you have to understand why this matters for the environment. Human behavior dictates that if a safer product is functionally useless, people simply won't use it.
Right, they'll just get frustrated.
They'll throw the half-full bottle in the trash, which creates plastic waste, by the way, and then immediately revert back to the harsher, toxic chemicals because, well, at the end of the day, they need their floors clean.
That makes so much sense. A useless eco-cleaner is actually worse for the environment because it's just manufacturing waste at that point.
Exactly. The P2 strategy only works if the safer alternatives are completely viable in the real world. If the EPA certified products that were perfectly non-toxic but terrible at cleaning, the entire program would fail its environmental mission.
Wow. Okay, so if these products have to work and they have to be safer, what kind of scope are we actually looking at? Because my mind immediately goes to the kitchen sink, dish soap and all-purpose spray.
Sure, the usual suspects.
Yeah, but looking through the certified product categories on the EPA site, it goes way, way beyond the kitchen.
The sheer breadth of the categories is usually what surprises people the most. I mean, it's not just household domestics.
Right, you've got laundry products and tub and tile cleaners, which makes sense. But then you see car care products.
Yeah.
Industrial floor degreasers, HVAC maintenance chemicals.
It gets very technical.
It does. I certainly wouldn't have expected industrial car wash liquids to fall under a program that feels so, consumer-facing. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
As you dig deeper into who the EPA is actually targeting with this site, a massive strategy reveals itself. They specifically feature a whole section for businesses and purchasers, and they heavily promote their Partner of the Year awards.
Yeah.
It becomes very obvious this isn't just for you and me pushing a shopping cart.
No, not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the genius of the program's design really shows itself. It is honestly a masterclass in macroeconomic manipulation.
Macroeconomic manipulation. Okay, I love that.
Well, think about it. While individual consumer choices are great, if you want to fundamentally change the global chemical supply chain, relying solely on household purchases of dish soap is agonizingly slow.
Yeah, me buying one bottle of safer laundry detergent every 3 months is barely a statistical anomaly.
Exactly. But what happens when you target institutional purchasers? Think about a major hospital network, a national hotel chain with thousands of properties, or, the federal government itself buying supplies for military bases.
Oh, wow. They buy a lot of soap.
A staggering amount.
Right.
When those massive entities update their corporate procurement policies to mandate that their vendors must supply EPA Safer Choice certified products, they aren't buying floor cleaners by the bottle, they're buying them by the literal ton.
Oh, I see. By creating a rigorous standardized label and then handing out these highly public Partner of the Year awards, the EPA is essentially handing massive corporations a verified outsourced way to hit their own corporate sustainability goals.
Exactly. The hotel chain doesn't need to hire a team of chemists. They just demand the Safer Choice label from their suppliers.
That is brilliant.
They are leveraging the gravitational pull of institutional buying power to force chemical manufacturers to adapt. If a major chemical company wants to land a $50 million contract with a global hotel brand, they suddenly have an overwhelming financial incentive to reformulate their industrial cleaners.
Just to meet the EPA standard.
Right. The awards serve as corporate prestige, but the underlying mechanism is pure economics. It shifts the market exponentially faster than consumer trends ever could.
And here's the beautiful side effect of that. If that massive chemical manufacturer invest the money to figure out a safer surfactant for their industrial B2B floor cleaner, they are going to use that exact same new, safer chemical in the consumer floor cleaner they sell to us at the grocery store.
Yes, it brings the cost of the safe ingredients down for everyone. It creates an economy of scale for safer chemistry.
That's incredible. But okay, this brings us to the actual mechanics, the science.
Right.
If a manufacturer is chasing that massive hotel contract and they want that label on their drum of cleaner, how do they actually prove it to the government? What is the scientific threshold for safer? Because safe is such a, slippery word.
It is. And the EPA handles this by dividing their evaluation into two major foundational frameworks.
Right. The first one I found is called the SCIL, the Safer Chemical Ingredients List. And the way they describe this is fascinating. It's not a list of finished products.
No, it's a list of specific raw molecular ingredients. It functions essentially as a master catalog of pre-vetted chemistry.
It's like a VIP guest list for chemicals.
Yes, exactly.
There's literally a guide on the site for chemical manufacturers called How to List on SCIL. It sounds incredibly difficult to get a new chemical past the EPA's bouncers.
Yeah.
But how do they actually evaluate it? What are the bouncers looking for?
Well, it requires an incredibly rigorous toxicological review. When a manufacturer submits an ingredient to be added to the SCIL, the EPA isn't just checking if it causes an immediate rash. They are looking at the entire life cycle and environmental profile of that molecule. They look at carcinogenicity. Does it cause cancer? They look at reproductive toxicity.
Wow.
But crucially, they look at environmental fate. Does this chemical biodegrade rapidly when it hits a wastewater treatment plant, or does it persist in the environment forever?
Oh, so what happens after it goes down the drain?
Exactly. Does it bioaccumulate in the fatty tissue of fish? Does
Yeah.
it cause aquatic toxicity? Only if the chemical proves to be safer across all those specific endpoints does it get added to the SCIL.
So if a company wants to make a new dish soap and get the Safer Choice label, they can basically open up the SCIL database, look at the pre-approved list of surfactants and preservatives, and formulate their product knowing the raw materials are already cleared by the EPA.
Yeah, it's like giving them a verified recipe book. It drastically streamlines the innovation process for manufacturers while ensuring public safety.
Okay, that makes sense. But if you read further into the program architecture, you notice that the SCIL alone is not sufficient for every type of product out there.
Right.
Yes, and this part initially threw me for a loop. There is a totally separate, distinct standard listed alongside Safer Choice called Design for the Environment, or DFE.
Yes, the DFE standard.
And the site explicitly notes that this DFE standard applies specifically to two very intense product categories, disinfectants and pesticides. Why do those two need an entirely different set of rules?
What's fascinating here is that you have to consider the fundamental biological mechanism of the products themselves. When you are formulating a laundry detergent or a floor degreaser, the primary scientific goal is to lift dirt, suspend it in water, and wash it away.
Okay.
You do not need the product to be biologically lethal to achieve that. You can create a highly effective soap that is inherently safe for living organisms.
But a pesticide is a completely different story.
Exactly. A pesticide, by its very definition, is engineered to kill things. A commercial disinfectant is designed to rupture the cell walls of bacteria and destroy viruses. You are inherently dealing with active ingredients that are toxic to living organisms. You cannot just pick a perfectly benign, safe ingredient off the SCIL to create a highly effective weed killer or a, hospital-grade viral disinfectant.
Right, because if it's perfectly safe, you spray it on the bug and the bug just takes a nice little bath and walks away.
Exactly. You haven't solved the problem, and you definitely haven't met the performance mandate we talked about earlier.
So how does the EPA regulate something that is supposed to be toxic?
They use a process called an alternatives assessment. And this is where the design for the environment standard gets incredibly sophisticated. Think of designing a safe pesticide, like trying to build a guided missile.
Oh, a guided missile. Okay.
You need it to be highly lethal to a very specific target, say a specific type of invasive beetle, but you need it to leave the rest of the city, or in this case, the rest of the ecosystem, completely untouched.
So it's all about precision.
Precision and degradation. The EPA isn't just looking for an inherently safe toxin, because that's an oxymoron. Instead, they are assessing whether the active ingredient is the safest possible alternative available on the market that still achieves the necessary lethality for its target.
Oh, I see.
For example, they look for disinfectants that are highly effective against pathogens, but break down into harmless compounds like water and oxygen almost immediately after use, rather than persisting as toxic runoff in the soil for 50 years.
Right. It is a wildly complex risk-benefit analysis compared to just evaluating a window cleaner.
Oh, absolutely.
That makes total sense. Safer choices for things that are meant to clean, and design for the environment is the protocol for things that are meant to kill.
Precisely.
And managing the scientific data for both of these, keeping the lists updated, evaluating new chemicals, it is a staggering amount of responsibility for one agency. The EPA is essentially acting as the scientific arbiter of truth for thousands of commercial products.
It's a massive undertaking.
Which brings us to a really interesting aspect of the source material. How the EPA manages their public interaction and, frankly, their legal liability.
Oh, yes. When you are dealing with government databases that dictate commercial success, the fine print is always where the structural realities are revealed.
The fine print on this site is fascinating. Right at the bottom of the main page, there is a very strict, legally robust disclaimer. It explicitly states that mention of trade names, companies, or commercial products does not constitute endorsement or recommendation for use by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Right.
And I find the irony here absolutely incredible. The EPA is literally giving you a recognizable trademarked label to stick on the front of your commercial bottle, specifically to boost your sales and show you passed their test. But their disclaimer aggressively insists they aren't endorsing your company.
This raises an important question, though, right? It seems contradictory at first glance, but it's a necessary firewall. It highlights the incredibly delicate line between government regulation and commercial favoritism.
Because they can't play favorites.
Exactly. The EPA is a taxpayer-funded regulatory body. They cannot legally act as a marketing arm for a private corporation, even if that corporation is doing exactly what the EPA wants them to do.
So they're separating the chemistry from the corporation.
That's a great way to put it. When the EPA grants that label, they are certifying that a specific chemical formulation submitted to them met their scientific standard at a specific point in time. It is a strictly factual certification of the math and the chemistry.
Okay, yeah.
But an endorsement implies a much broader institutional backing of the company itself. It implies they vouch for the company's business practices, their labor standards, or, their future behavior.
All right, great.
The disclaimer protects the government from liability. If a certified company gets caught doing something illegal tomorrow, the EPA can say, we only vouched for the molecular structure of their soap, not their corporate ethics.
But vouch for the math, not the manufacturer.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And speaking of how the government communicates this math to the real world, the accessibility of this database really stood out to me.
Oh, the accessibility features are fantastic.
Right. This is highly technical data, but it isn't just buried in some dense English-only PDF. The site architecture prominently offers translation assistance in 12 specific languages.
Yeah.
You've got Spanish, Arabic, simplified and traditional Chinese, French, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Vietnamese. And then they specifically include Haitian Creole and Tagalog.
And that is not a random selection of languages churned out by an automator widget. That is a highly intentional public health decision.
Because of who is actually interacting with these chemicals on a daily basis.
Exactly. Think back to our discussion about institutional purchasing. The hotels, the hospitals, the massive B2B buyers.
Right.
The corporate executives making the purchasing decisions are in an office, but the people actually opening the chemical drums, mixing the industrial floor strippers, and breathing in the fumes are frontline janitorial and maintenance staff.
And they need to read the labels.
Right. In the United States, those specific demographics often include significant populations where Haitian Creole or Tagalog is the primary language.
Oh, wow. So if the EPA is going to create a standard that protects human health, they have to ensure the actual humans handling the chemicals understand the safety data.
Precisely.
If a frontline worker doesn't understand the difference between a safer choice cleaner and a highly toxic uncertified degreaser because the safety sheet is only in English, the program fails at the point of contact.
Exactly. Information gaps in chemical handling don't just cause confusion, they cause real-world acute chemical burns and respiratory issues. By actively supporting those specific languages, the EPA is recognizing the on-the-ground reality of the commercial cleaning sector.
It shows they know exactly who their audience is. And you see that same hyper-awareness in how they design their user feedback systems.
Yes, the feedback survey.
Yeah, there's a detailed feedback survey on the site. It's highly official, complete with an Office of Management and Budget approval number. But what caught my eye was how they ask you to identify yourself before you leave feedback. They ask if you are visiting the site as a business, a government employee, a scientist, or a student.
That categorization tells you everything you need to know about the incredible UI challenge the EPA faces in building this digital infrastructure. They are trying to serve entirely different masters with the exact same database.
Right, because a PhD toxicologist and a high school sophomore are both logging onto the same URL.
Exactly. A research scientist might be visiting the SCL database to download the raw molecular toxicity data to cross-reference half-lives for a new polymer they are developing. They need dense, granular, unrestricted data.
And the manufacturer.
A chemical manufacturer is logging on to figure out the bureaucratic steps to get the safer choice label on their new tub cleaner. A government procurement officer is visiting to verify that a vendor's claim of certification is actually legally valid.
And then the student.
And a student might just be writing a freshman biology paper on pollution prevention and needs a simple, high-level summary.
And the EPA has to build an interface that doesn't alienate any of them. If the site is too dense and academic, the student and the small business owner give up, and the program's reach shrinks.
Right.
But if they dumb it down too much, the scientists and procurement officers can't do their highly technical jobs.
And by rigorously categorizing and tracking user feedback across those specific demographics, the EPA can constantly adjust the digital architecture. They ensure it remains robust enough for industry professionals, but completely accessible to the general public. It's a continuous loop of public interaction and bureaucratic refinement.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of ground here today, from preventing the smoke at the factory to the guided missiles of the pesticide world.
We really have.
If we distill all these government documents and standards down, the big takeaway for you, the listener, is that when you see that Safer Choice logo in the grocery store, you aren't just looking at a random green sticker slapped on a bottle by an overenthusiastic marketing team. It represents a comprehensive dual mandate system. It guarantees safety plus actual tested performance.
It is backed by a highly rigorous, scientifically tiered system of evaluation. The Safer Chemical Ingredients list provides the vetted baseline for everyday cleaners, ensuring molecules don't persist in our water.
Right.
Meanwhile, the Design for the Environment standard meticulously assesses the tougher, inherently dangerous chemicals, demanding the safest possible alternatives for jobs that actually require them.
And the entire apparatus, from leveraging corporate hotel contracts to translating chemical data into Tagalog, is engineered around that core philosophy of pollution prevention, to stop the toxic runoff at the manufacturing source rather than forcing us to clean up the mess at the end of the pipe.
But, as we close out this deep dive, I think the sheer scale of the EPA's work raises a much broader and frankly more challenging question for us to consider as consumers.
Okay, lay it on us.
We have just explored the depth of this data. We know that the SCIL exists. The government has already done the heavy lifting. They have spent the millions of dollars and countless hours to identify, test, and catalog these specific ingredients that are proven to be safer for human health and the environment, while still delivering high performance.
Right. The math is done. The VIP list is published and available to any chemist who wants to look at it.
Exactly, which leads to a very provocative reality. If this baseline standard for safety and performance already exists and the formulas are readily available to any manufacturer in the world, why is participation in the Safer Choice program entirely voluntary?
Oh, wow.
If we know exactly how to make products that work without poisoning the watershed, why aren't all everyday products on our store shelves simply required by law to meet this baseline standard by default?
That is a phenomenal question, and it's definitely something to chew on the next time you find yourself standing in that cleaning aisle, staring at that wall of brightly colored bottles, wondering what exactly is inside them. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep reading the fine print, keep questioning the systems behind the products you bring into your home, and we will see you next time.